wanted to turn now to Dr. Eran Lerman, Vice President at the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, former Department Director of Foreign Policy and International Affairs at the National Security Council of the Prime Minister's Office. Thank you very much, Dr. Lerman, for joining us. You've been listening together with us to the IDF Chief of Staff. And Guy Israel here in studio mentioned, Dr. Lerman, the issue of fuel. And in this respect, it is important to stress that fuel fuels terrorism. No other way to put it. And as we speak, a report on NBC suggesting that Hamas is currently obtains around 200,000 gallons of fuel for terror purposes. Mostly, of course, rocket fire and electricity supply to its to the underground metro. And yet we keep on talking about new fuel entering the strip. Try to help us wrap our minds around it.
I think the easiest way to organize our thoughts on this question is to remember that there's no longer a Gaza Strip. There are two different regions. South of Gaza Valley or Creek, Wadi Gaza, and north of it. The IDF has basically organized its operations along this principal distinction from basically from day one or day three, when once we cleared out the penetrations of October 7. And the notion is this. The main command structure, the main combat capabilities, the governance infrastructure of Hamas are all concentrated in Gaza City north. And this is where the IDF is fighting. Essentially, without going into detail, you can gain the impression that the IDF is now at the gate, has broken through the second line of Hamas defenses and is coming and closing in on the Gaza complex itself. This is still a large city with an extremely complex fighting environment. It's not going to be easy or simple. But it's possible to isolate the battlefield in that segment from the south, where we have been suggesting forcefully to the people of Gaza City and its suburbs and adjoining towns to move south and concentrate there, where they need to be fed, housed, or at least temporarily treated medically, and so on. The Egyptians are establishing a field hospital on their side of the border, but this is clearly not going to be enough. So we are drawing a distinction between the battlefield and the humanitarian refuge area to the south of it. What will happen in the next stage, once Hamas is destroyed as a fighting force, as a government, as an entity in the city area, in the Gaza City area, will depend on whether or not they will collapse altogether, or will try to, the remnants will try to melt into the south, and there we will have a different situation.
So
right now, this is the distinction, and this also explains the humanitarian corridors and so on. It accords with the IDF interest to clear the northern area of the uninvolved.
Right. So, Dr. Lerman, I want to join Mr. Nathaniel Shiraki into our conversation, or how we get there.
We are not yet. I don't know how to count stages. We are
fair enough.
3 in a sense, and stage 4 and 5 are ahead of us. But stage 1, of course, was clearing the Western Negev of infiltrators. Stage 2 was preparing the battlefield, to use the professional military language, Air Force and artillery and so on. Now we are at stage 3. Stage 4 will be the actual destruction of Hamas as a government, as a structured organization, and then we shall have to watch and see if this actually breaks their capacity to continue and conduct operations, because they are no longer a terrorist organization in the old sense, a cell here and a cell there. This is a military of sorts, with their capabilities having changed quite dramatically. And once these capabilities are broken, we of course have to be ready for the possibility of a prolonged counterinsurgency situation. But we have to bear in mind, in the south, that we are not the only interested player. Egypt also will have to cast an eye on what happens there, because the last thing they want is for the uprooted population in Gaza to spill over the border. So we are just at the beginning of a long and very complicated set of changes in the very nature of governance in Gaza. And ultimately, I agree, the IDF does not want to stay there and rule, but as a transitional phase in at least the key parts of Gaza, we are going to go in very deep and eradicate Hamas as a government system and as a terrorist organization. By the way, we should mention, we keep talking about Hamas, we should also mention Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the smaller but nasty sister, and the 100% owned Iranian proxy in this game.
Yes, Mr. Sharkey, briefly before we head up north,
Absolutely. I think
briefly before we head to our correspondent up north,
historically, the reason the IDF was not eager to conquer Gaza was not its fear of casualties.
Well, obviously, the disengagement was a very...
the idea, what do we do with it when we have it? But by now, the question is moot.
Yes, indeed.
You have to win and conquer.
You're right.
Not sure about this. I think that's the question.
We will put as a PR ahead of his speech tomorrow, and yet we are waiting to hear not just the what, but the how, if you will.
Well, I think the considerations that have weighed down on Hezbollah and his Iranian sponsors are still there. First of all, the IDF is in the north in full mobilization. Its armored formations have more people showing up for reserve service than were called up, and it's in full complement. And the Air Force, while still needed in the south, it can swing its capacity north.
Yes, and IDF Chief of Staff Tel Aviv was talking about only 50% of usage of the Israeli Air Force activities.
Right.
Unfortunately,
so the cost for Lebanon would be immense. So, four considerations.
Dr. Lerman, unfortunately, we will have to stay on our toes because this is all the time we have, but we will get back to you later on in our broadcast to hear those 4 points. Thank you very much, Dr. Lerman, for your time, for your